look around the room you are sitting in right now. You probably see plastic, metal, and glass. If you look out the window, you might see concrete buildings, asphalt roads, and cars. If you look in your fridge, you see food. We are taught that the modern world is built on a foundation of steel, coal, and oil. We think of heavy industry as a domain of black soot and roaring furnaces. But there is a ghost in the machine, a silent, invisible architect that shaped the 20th century and is desperately trying to save the 21st. It's the very same element that ignited the first stars: hydrogen. You don't see it because hydrogen rarely likes to be alone. It is the most sociable element in the universe, constantly binding itself to carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen. But when human beings figured out how to rip hydrogen away from its chemical partners and weaponize its reactivity, we fundamentally altered the trajectory of our species. To understand the sheer, terrifying scale of hydrogen's role in our world, we have to travel back to the early 1900s. Humanity was facing an existential crisis. The global population was exploding, and the soil was dying. We were running out of fertilizer, specifically nitrogen, to grow our food. Without it, mass starvation was not just a possibility, it was a mathematical certainty. The frustrating irony was that we were drowning in nitrogen. It makes up 78% of the air we breathe, but atmospheric nitrogen is locked in a chemical bond so tight, so aggressively stable, that plants cannot use it. We were starving in an ocean of plenty. Then two German chemists, Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch, performed a miracle. They realized that if you take nitrogen from the air, mix it with pure hydrogen gas, heat it to 500 degrees Celsius, and subject it to a crushing pressure 200 times greater than the Earth's atmosphere, the impossible happens. The nitrogen breaks apart and bonds with the hydrogen. The result? Ammonia, the foundation of modern synthetic fertilizers. But where do you get the pure hydrogen for this monumental task? You strip it away from fossil fuels or water. Today, the Haber-Bosch process consumes millions of tons of pure hydrogen every single year. Think about the implications of this for a moment. This single industrial process, entirely dependent on harnessing hydrogen, keeps our agricultural system alive. If you look at the nitrogen atoms currently building the DNA and proteins in your own body, nearly 50% of them pass through an industrial factory. Without this mastery over hydrogen, half of the people on Earth simply would not exist today. But feeding the world was just the beginning of hydrogen's industrial empire. As the 20th century roared on, our thirst for oil became insatiable. We pulled dark, heavy crude out of the ground to power our cars, planes, and ships. But raw crude oil is a messy, toxic soup. It is full of impurities, the worst of which is sulfur. When you burn sulfur, it turns into sulfur dioxide, unleashing acid rain that strips forests bare and poisons lakes. Once again, industry called upon the ghost in the machine. In the sprawling metal cities we call oil refineries, hydrogen is pumped into massive reaction chambers alongside crude oil. Under extreme heat and pressure, the hydrogen acts like a microscopic assassin. It hunts down the sulfur atoms, binds to them, and rips them out of the oil, creating hydrogen sulfide gas, which can then be safely managed. Every single drop of gasoline or diesel you have ever put into a vehicle has been chemically scrubbed, purified, and upgraded by hydrogen. It is the great cleaner of our dirty energy system. But here lies the dark paradox of our modern age. Hydrogen is the cleanest burning fuel in the universe. When you consume it, the only byproduct is pure water. Yet the way we currently produce that hydrogen for all our industrial needs is an environmental disaster. Right now, virtually all the hydrogen used in factories, refineries, and fertilizer plants is what scientists call gray hydrogen. We make it by taking natural gas, methane, and blasting it with superheated steam. This violently tears the hydrogen atoms away from the carbon atoms. We take the hydrogen to feed our industries, and we dump the carbon directly into the atmosphere as CO2. The production of industrial hydrogen alone is responsible for more carbon emissions than the entire aviation industry globally. We are using the cleanest element in existence, but creating it is slowly cooking our planet. This brings us to the precipice of the greatest industrial revolution of our time, the battle for green hydrogen. If we are going to survive the climate crisis, we cannot just put solar panels on our roofs and buy electric cars. We have to decarbonize the heavy, brutal industries that build our world. And the ultimate boss fight of decarbonization is steel. Steel is the skeleton of civilization. It is in our bridges, our skyscrapers, our wind turbines, and our cargo ships. But making steel is a brutally primitive process. For thousands of years, we have taken iron ore and thrown it into towering blast furnaces along with coal. The carbon from the coal strips the oxygen away from the iron, leaving behind pure metal. This process is so carbon intensive that steelmaking alone accounts for roughly 8% of all global greenhouse gas emissions. We can't stop making steel, but we can't keep making it like this. The solution is hiding in plain sight. What if, instead of using carbon to strip the oxygen from the iron ore, we used hydrogen? Inside a new generation of experimental reactors, scientists are doing exactly that. They are pumping pure hydrogen gas into towers filled with iron ore. The hydrogen is so desperate to bond with oxygen that it violently rips it away from the iron. But this time, there is no carbon dioxide. When hydrogen steals oxygen, it creates something entirely different. H2O. Imagine a steel mill, a colossal behemoth of heavy industry, a place historically associated with choking black smoke and toxic ash, breathing out nothing but clouds of pure, clean water vapor. This isn't a pipe dream. It is called direct reduced iron. And the first batches of this green steel have already been delivered to manufacturers. But for this revolution to succeed, the hydrogen we use must be green hydrogen. We can't make it from natural gas anymore. We have to make it from water. By using massive electrical currents generated by wind turbines and solar panels, we can shock water molecules, splitting them into pure oxygen and pure hydrogen. This process, called electrolysis, is the holy grail of modern industry. It allows us to take the kinetic energy of the wind and the radiation of the sun and store it in a chemical bond. We can bottle the wind, we can put the sun in a pipeline. Once we do that, the possibilities become terrifyingly vast. We can use that green hydrogen to make clean fertilizer. We can use it to make green steel. We can pipe it into massive kilns to make cement. We can even combine it with captured carbon from the air to create synthetic, carbon neutral jet fuel for airplanes. Hydrogen is no longer just a fundamental particle drifting through the void of space. It is the skeleton key to our future. For the last century, it was the invisible, dirty engine of our industrial rise. For the next century, it must become the clean engine of our survival. We are returning to the very beginning. The element that built the universe from the chaos of the Big Bang is now the only thing that can save our civilization from the chaos of our own making. We are not just observers of the cosmos, we are mechanics tinkering with the source code of reality, and hydrogen is our most powerful tool.